Assalamu alaikum. Hope all of you are fine. We continue with the this next lecture of the integumentary system, that is the histology of the integumentary system. In this lecture, we'll discuss the differences of a thick and a thin skin and the histological features of the hair and hair follicles, the nails, and the sebaceous glands. The thick skin and the thin skin is referred to the thickness of the epidermis. And as we have discussed in the previous lecture, all the layers of the epidermis, like we have the stratum basale or the stratum germinativum, then the stratum spinosum, and then is the layer of the stratum granulosum, and above the stratum granulosum is the layer of the stratum lucidum. And this layer, the stratum lucidum, is absent in the thin skin and it is present in the thick skin. And above is the multiple layers of the stratum corneum. So the main difference in the thick and the thin skin is the absence and the presence of a stratum lucidum. Then the thick skin also lacks the hair follicles, the erector pili muscles, and the sebaceous glands. The dermis of the thick skin is thin, which is surrounding it, and it is convergent with the dermal papillae. The thick skin has the sweat glands, but in the thin skin, the sweat glands they are more numerous, and the thick skin is mainly subjected to the mechanical abrasions. This is a photomicrograph showing you the thin skin. You can identify the all the layers of the epidermis, the stratum basale, the stratum spinosum, the stratum granulosum, and the stratum corneum. But the stratum lucidum is absent in this thin skin. The thin skin is comprised of the thick epidermis. You can see here the thick epidermis in which all the hair follicles and the other appendages of the skin they are embedded. There are multiple sebaceous glands, the sweat glands, they are present. And both layers of the dermis, the papillary layers and the reticular layer of the dermis, they are well defined in the thin skin. And the epidermis shows the dermal papilla, and the invaginations of the epidermis they are present as in the thick skin also. Now we'll discuss the appendages of the skin, the hair follicle, the hair and the hair follicles, the sweat glands, the sebaceous glands, the nails and the mammary glands. They are all appendages of the skin. Now we'll discuss these appendages one by one. The hair and the hair follicles they are present almost entirely on the entire body, but they are absent on the from the sides and the palmar surfaces of the hand, sides and the plantar surfaces of the feet, lips, and the regions around the urogenital orifices. The distribution of the hair in the males and the females it is influenced by the sex hormones and the androgens which are released at puberty. In the males, the hair line tends to recede with the age, and they have the male pattern of the baldness, which is shown here, the scalp hairs. And but Also in the females, the scalp hairs they thin out with the age, and because of the decreased secretion of the estrogens. The here they perform the function of they give the sense of the light touch to the skin. They protect the scalp, and also they help in the keeping the skin warm as they goosebump forms in the cold weather, and it traps the air inside to keep the skin warm. So this is also a function of a hair. So you can see here the part of the hair which is emerging out from the skin is called the hair shaft, and the part which is embedded inside is the root of the hair. So we'll discuss this histological appearance of this hair. So, so histological appearance of the hair follicle, it varies depending upon whether it is in a growing stage or a resting stage. So you can see here the follicles of the hair embedded in the dermis. These are the transverse sections. So this is all the growing part or the hair root of the hair. So the part of the hair emerging from the skin outside is the hair shaft. This is the surface opening of the hair. So the part of the hair from the surface opening till the attachment of the sebaceous gland, this part is called the infundibulum. Now, this part is also called the pilosebaceous canal, and this is a route that is used for the discharge of the sebum also. So, the common pathway for the emergence of this hair and also the secretions of the sebaceous gland, the sebum, is poured out through this external orifice. So, part is also called the pilosebaceous canal. And this the sebaceous gland, its duct, and this canal of the hair or the infundibulum part is called the pilosebaceous unit. So this is the erector pili muscle, which is attached to this root of the hair, and the contraction of these erector pili muscle, it helps to erect the hair in the goose bump formations in the cold weather. So the part of the hair which is from the attachment of the sebaceous gland to the attachment of the erector pili muscle is called the isthmus. And this lower part is called the lower segment or the lower segment or the inferior segment. Now this bulb of the hair follicle or the inferior segment, it is a dilated portion, and it is dilated at the base, which is called the bulb of the hair. Now, this bulb of the hair is invaginated by a tuft of the capillaries, or it is vascularized to keep the hair follicles or the growing hair cells to keep their blood supply and nourishment, to give them nourishment. So, this projection of the dermis layer, part into this area of the bulb of the hair is called the dermal papilla. Now these cells which are surrounding this dermal papilla, they forms the matrix, and this matrix layer is the growing layer, or shows a lot of the proliferation of the cells, and it is also called the germinative layer. Now, this proliferation of the cells in the germinative layer of this matrix layer is responsible for the growth of the hair. Now you can see here the scattered melanocytes which are also present in the germinative layer. These melanocytes will be responsible for production of the melanin, which gives the hair its color. So melanin pigments, they can be black or brown, or they can be a red pigment which gives the different colors to the hair. And in the old age, the melanin is or the melanocytes, they decreased in amount, and here the air bubbles, they are formed, so it gives rise to the hair with the no color or the white hair. So these are all the showing you the parts of the hair. So the hair shaft basically consists of three layers: the central cortex, central medulla, outer cortex, and then is the cuticle layer. So we'll discuss these layers. Now this is a very good diagram or the photomicrograph showing you all the parts of the hair. So this is the hair shaft, and this is the transverse section, and this is the invagination of the dermis inside, which is showing you the dermal papilla, and it is vascularized area here, and these arrows is showing you the matrix of the hair and the germinative layer in which you can identify the melanocytes also, and this dilated portion is called the hair bulb. Now, in the cut section or the transfer section, you can see here this central portion is the medulla. So, the thick hairs in the cells of the central region of the root at the apex of the dermal papilla, they become large vacuolated and moderately keratinized, and they forms the medulla of the hair. Then the cells of the root multiply and differentiate into the heavily keratinized fusiform cells, and they form the hair cortex. So this central is the medulla, and the outer cells which are proliferating from this matrix, and they go grouped into the fusiform cells, they form the cortex, and they continue in the shaft. Then outside the cortex is a thin layer which you can identify here, a thin transparent layer that is the flattened cells of the cuticle. So this layer of the cells that is cuboidal and midway up to the bulb then becomes tall columnar. The dermis which is surrounding this follicle is dense, and it forms a connective tissue sheath. This is all of the dermis which is forming the connective tissue sheath around this hair shaft and the hair follicle and the hair bulb. Now this dermal sheath, it will continue with the dermal papilla upside at the level of the epidermis. So the papillary layer of the dermis, it surrounds this dermal sheath, and there you can identify here that these are the bundles of the smooth muscles, and they are forming the arrector pili muscles which are attached to it. So these are all the arrector pili muscles. So this is the dermal sheath, and the dermal sheath which is surrounding here is divided into the outer sheath and the inner, which is called the outer root sheath, and the inner root sheath, discussed later on. So this is the cut section showing you the inner core of the medulla, and outer is the cortex, and then we have the epithelial sheath or a dermal sheath, which is a connective tissue sheath around this here. And this connective tissue sheath is divided into two parts, the outer dermal sheath and the inner dermal sheath. Here you can identify all the parts of the hair, and these are the sebaceous glands which are attached to it. This is the pilosebaceous canal, and this is the inferior segment or the root of the hair and the hair bulb. And you can identify here the dermal sheath which is continuous above with the epidermal epidermis at the dermal papillae. Now you can see the higher magnification of this shaft of the hair and its layers. Now you can see this is the central portion of the hair, and this is the internal root sheath. Now this internal root sheath, you can identify the two layers which they are also called the glassy membrane, and this is the hyaline layer which is the Huxley's layer of the cells, and this outer layer is called the Henle's layer. So it separates the inner root sheath with the outer root sheath, which is a continues with the epidermal cells near the surface and shows all the layers of the epidermis. Now, the growth of the hair is not continuous, and it is not in a similar pattern. It is asynchronous, and it shows the different patterns of the hair growth, and then is the resting phase. So we can identify the three patterns of the growth of the hair or a hair growth cycle. That is the anagen phase, which is the growing phase, then is the catagen phase, which is a transition phase, and the telogen phase, which is a resting phase. So in the anagen phase, which is a growing phase of the hair, and this the hair increases its length or growth of the hair takes place. So it lasts for about 2 to 7 years, and it regulates the length of the hair. So it is the active stage of the uh, uh, hair cycle. Now, in the catagen phase, you can see that in the catagen phase, this is a transitional stage that lasts about the 10 days. And in this, the hair follicle, it contracts and it removes it from the dermal papilla. So it's a transition phase. Then is the telogen phase or the resting phase. And in this phase, it lasts for about 3 months, and for hairs of the scalp and lengthier for the hairs of the eyebrows, eyelashes, arms, and legs. And or out of all the hair, 10 to 15% of the hair they are in this phase. Now you can see here that the dermal papilla is completely separated from the hair follicle in this phase, the telogen phase, and in this phase, the hair may shed. And nails, they are also the one of the appendage of the skin. They are the hard keratinized structures, and it covers the dorsal surface of the tips of the fingers and the toes. This is the free edge of a nail, the body of the nail. These are the lateral skin folds, and this part area is the root of the nail. This root of the nail is covered by a layer of the skin or the proximal nail fold of the skin, and this area smaller fold of the skin is called the cuticle. You can identify here this cuticle or the eponychium, and this is the nail matrix which is embedded inside, and this is the growing part of the nail matrix. So this is showing you the distal phalanx, and distal phalanx over which there is the epidermis layer, which consists of only the stratum basale and the stratum spinosum. Now you can see this stratum basale, or which is also called the stratum germinativum. Now this nail bed is embedded over this layer of the epidermis, and it grows from the cells of the nail matrix. So this is the free edge of the nail, and the undersurface of the nail is called the hypo. This is another photomicrograph showing you the nail of a mouse, and you can identify all these parts. So this is the nail matrix, the cuticle or the eponychium, this proximal nail fold, and this nail plate or the which is embedded over the nail bed, and it is a hard keratinized structure, and it grows in length, variable length, and this undersurface is called the hyponychium. Sebaceous glands, they are also one of the appendage of the skin. The sebaceous glands, they are present in almost all of the skins except the palms and the soles. And these sebaceous glands, you can see here, identify they are embedded in the dermis and attached to the hair follicle. This sebaceous glands, they produce secretions which are called the sebum, and these sebum secretions, they are poured by the holocrine mode of the secretions to the outside through a canal which is common canal for the passage of the hair and the sebum. This is called the pilosebaceous canal. So this oil or the sebum. Now, sebaceous glands, they are the sebaceous glands, they are the branched acinar glands, and these branched acinar glands, they pour their secretions into the common duct. And now you can see here, and this is the capsule of which is surrounding these sebaceous glands, and there is the basal lamina and the basal layer of the sebaceous glands. Now these basal lamina or the germinativum layer, it proliferates and it pours the secretions towards the duct of the sebaceous gland, because the myoepithelial cells, they are absent here. Now you can see here the cells of these sebaceous glands. They are filled with the lipids, and they are a very good example of the holocrine mode of the secretion, and they pour their secretions by holocrine method into their ducts. So these cells of these sebaceous glands, they are also called the sebocytes, and they are filled with the small fat or the lipid droplets, and and their products, which is called the sebum. It is actually a complex of the lipids and includes the wax and cholesterol, triglycerides, which are hydrolyzed by the enzymes and the bacterial enzymes after their secretion. So this is all about the skin appendages, and we have discussed in this lecture the hair, the appendages of the skin like the hair, nail, and the sebaceous glands. So what a hairy animal they are also. This is now we'll continue with the next lecture about the sweat glands and the mammary glands.